Brill and the Dragators by Peggy Downing. Illustrated by Anne Feza. Chapter 6. Segra's Dangerous Plan. The cries became louder as the children came closer to it. Brill followed Segra. "What's making that awful noise?" he demanded. "You'll see." Segra stopped to pull a rope from a hollow tree. "Here, you carry this." She picked up a short branch. "What are you going to do?" asked Brill, remembering how he barely escaped with his life the last time he had been involved with one of Segra's schemes. His sensible side kept telling him to run back to the palace. "Segra, I want to know what you're planning." "Don't be so nervous. You won't be in any danger." But shivers of fear crawled over Brill's skin as another cry of agony pierced the air. The sound was very near. They came to the end of the forest. Below them lay the deep moat. Brill looked down on a narrow beach where a dragator bellowed in pain. "I think he has broken his foreleg. I'm going to set it." Brill gasped. "You're out of your mind. Dragators eat people, remember?" "He won't eat me. Look at those sad black eyes. He's begging for someone to stop the pain. All I want you to do is hold the rope while I go up and down. Belay it around that tree." "Even if this Dragator is friendly, what about all the others?" "I don't see any others." "They may still be sleeping, but soon they'll come looking for their breakfasts." "You watch for them. You can warn me if you see one crawling towards me." Segra pulled a strip of cloth from her pocket and tore it into ribbons. "I'm ready. Hold the rope steady." "Do you know how to set bones?" "Father's a doctor. I used to help him." Segra tied the rope around her waist and started down the steep cliff wall. Brill lowered the rope as she needed it. He shuddered as he saw the injured Dragator watching her. "Keep away from his fiery breath," Brill called. Segra reached the narrow beach. Brill grasped the rope firmly, ready to pull if the Dragator tried to eat her. Segra put some peaches by his mouth, and he looked at them curiously as she patted his scaly head. "He probably only eats raw meat," thought Brill. "I'll have your poor leg better very soon," Segra said softly. She knelt beside the creature and put the stick next to his leg. Carefully, she felt the bone. The Dragator bellowed. Brill cried, "Don't hurt him! He won't understand!" But the huge beast lay still as Segra tied the stick on with the cloth ribbons. "It won't hurt so much if you keep it perfectly still," explained Segra, as if the beast could understand. "You'll have to stay quiet while the bone is healing. Please don't try to swim. I'll bring you food. I wish you could tell me what you like." As if to answer her, the Dragator ate one of the peaches in one gulp, seed and all. She patted his head. "I'll bring you more fruit and vegetables from the garden. I have to go now, but I'll be back tomorrow morning. I think I'll call you Peachy." He nuzzled his ugly head against her. Segra signaled Brill to pull her up. She climbed up the steep cliff as he slowly pulled up the rope. He couldn't believe what he had just seen, a Dragator who didn't swallow a person when he had a chance. As Segra came to the top of the cliff, he asked, "Wasn't his breath burning hot?" She shook her head. "Only a little warm." "Maybe it only turns hot when he's about to eat somebody." "Or else it's been greatly exaggerated." Segra untied the rope around her waist. "If Peachy stays quiet, his leg should heal fast," Brill said. "Better hurry back to the palace." Segra waved goodbye to Peachy. He made a guttural sound in his throat as if he were swallowing a sob. Brill coiled the rope and Segra hid it in a hollow tree. She followed him through the woods. "Dragators are not as fierce as people think," she said. "They eat people," reminded Brill. "It's probably because they're starving. I think they'd rather eat fruits and vegetables. If all you had to eat was slimy water plant, you'd get very hungry." I wouldn't eat raw people. Segra muffled a giggle. Would you eat cooked people? You have a strange sense of humor. I know, but it helps me get through the days. Brill opened the palace door and they slipped inside. He hurried to his room. He was safe. Prince Grossder had not yet awakened. The amazing events of the morning kept running through Brill's mind. Was Segra right? Did Dragators have a gentle side? Or had Peachy eaten Brill's father? When Brill was called by Grossder, the prince began complaining. Today the king of Leonef is coming with his whole family. I have to greet them when they arrive. I hate Oplak, the crown prince. Last time he was here, he asked why I wore pillows in my clothes. Why didn't you threaten to throw him to the Dragators? Asked Brill. I wish I could have, but father says we have to keep on good terms with Leonef. The fierce warriors of Esperita won't dare attack us if we keep our alliance with Leonef. How long are your visitors staying? They'll leave tomorrow. After the welcoming ceremony, I'm to take Oplak to the play park. You can help me entertain the little monster. The day at the play park was hectic. Little Prince Oplak delighted in teasing Prince Grossder. You could get a job as the fat man in the circus, Prince Oplak laughed. I'm the crown prince of Exitorn and I shall be emperor, declared Prince Grossder. Brill tried to distract the teasing prince. Would you like a merry-go-round ride? He shrugged. I suppose. As they climbed aboard, Prince Oplak ran to the large horse reserved for Prince Grossder. I want to ride on this one, he said. Brill grabbed his hand and pulled him to another horse. Here's the finest horse, Prince Oplak. You can lead the parade. Prince Grossder waddled over to his special horse and Meopar helped him on. Prince Oplak laughed. I never knew anyone who was so fat he had to have a special horse built for him. Brill mounted another horse as the merry-go-round began to move. After a couple of turns, Prince Oplak yelled, Hey, can't this thing go any faster? Or is it too heavy with Prince Grossder aboard? Brill tried to think what he could do to silence the cheeky little prince. Later at the zoo, Grossder decided to stay in the coach while Oplak and Brill walked closer to the animals. Brill said, Good manners are very important for princes. Princes can do whatever they like, retorted Oplak. It's not good manners to make fun of how somebody looks. I can say whatever I want. Oplak pressed his lips together in a determined expression. Someday, when you're king and Prince Grossder is emperor, you may need the emperor's help. Grossder will remember how you teased him and he'll refuse your request. I won't ever need his help. Leonef is smaller than Exitorn. Clever princes are friendly to all rulers, for they never know when they'll need their help. I'm clever. Of course you are. So I know you'll stop teasing Prince Grossder. He stuck out his lower lip. I was tired of teasing that fat fool anyway. Oplak ran ahead and began making grotesque faces at the monkeys who looked at him curiously. The carriage driver interrupted them. Prince Grossder wishes you to join him for lunch. But I haven't finished looking at the animals, complained Oplak. We can come back later, promised Brill. They walked to the small restaurant set up for the prince and princess. Prince Grossder was sitting at a table with Segra and Princess Florette. Grossder had already ordered for them chocolate-crusted chicken, chocolate milk, and fudge pudding. My mother would never let me eat this much chocolate. She makes me eat spinach and liver so I'll be clever and healthy. He looked at Prince Grossder. I suppose your mother doesn't care if you're clever and healthy. Grossder hastily chewed his mouthful of food and spluttered. Chocolate is the most healthy food there is. Oplak laughed. Oh, are you telling me your mountains of fat are healthy? Brill poked Oplak with his elbow to remind him of the danger of teasing Grossder and tried to change the subject. What have you girls been doing today? Princess Florette answered, Watching the puppets. They're my favorite. Prince Oplik grinned at her. How did you get your hair so red? Dip it in cherry juice? My hair grows this way, snapped Fleurette. She has red hair like fire, so beware of her ire, chanted Oplik. The princess broke into tears. Segra put her arm around her. Don't cry, Fleurette. Your hair is beautiful. Everyone says so, except this unmannerly boy. The princess wiped her eyes. I'm not crying 'cause of what he said. I'm crying 'cause Father says I have to marry him when I'm 15. She broke into fresh sobs that shook her body. Prince Grossder announced, I shall forbid it. I will not have this nasty boy related to us. Exitorn needs Leonif as an ally. I don't mind marrying Appletop because I'll probably have to rule Exitorn too. Grossder will be so fat by then he won't be able to move. Prince Grossder stood and shook his finger. When I get to be emperor, I'll order my soldiers to march into Leonif. I'll make it a part of my kingdom. A look of alarm flashed on Oplik's face. I was only joking. I didn't mean it. Fleurette, your hair is beautiful, and Grossder, eating is a fine hobby. You are so talented in selecting gourmet food. The rest of the afternoon, Oplik complimented Grossder whenever he had a chance. By the time they returned to the palace, Prince Grossder was in a good mood. That evening, the emperor entertained the visiting royal family at a dinner in the throne room. Brill was not invited, and a maid brought him dinner in his room. A little later, Segra knocked on his door. She was carrying a handkerchief tied around a bundle. Brill, will you take this food to the king tomorrow morning? I want to go to the moat to see how Peachy is doing. But how will you get down to the moat without me? I'm not going down unless there's a problem. I'll just drop some cabbages and peaches for him to eat. I don't think he'll mind if they get a bit squashed. I expect I can poke food into the king, agreed Brill, feeling creepy fingers of fear tingle his back at the thought of being caught. He asked, Segra, why are you so brave? I'm not brave. Yes, you are. You help the king even though you know it's dangerous. And you helped the Dragator who might have eaten you. I wish I were brave like you. Segra looked thoughtful. Do you remember the war with Asperita 3 years ago? Yes. We were afraid the Asperitans would invade our village, but the Emperor's soldiers drove them back. The Asperitans climbed our mountain. I suppose they wanted to use it for a lookout point. We saw them coming, and we escaped down the other side. It was very frightening. We moved at night and hid in caves in the daytime. Did they catch you? No, but almost. One of the women from our settlement had a fretful baby. He cried most of the time. As the soldiers got closer, our headman said she'd have to leave the child or we'd all be captured. The parents agreed, but my father said he'd stay and care for the baby. What did you do? Mother and I stayed with Father while the rest of the people fled. Did the Asperitans find you? No. The baby finally fell asleep and the soldiers passed by our cave. Weren't you terribly scared? Yes, but Father said if you love Jesus with all your heart, you belong to him for all eternity. You don't have to be afraid of anything. I've never forgotten those words. A few days later, the war ended and we went home. Aren't you afraid of getting hurt? When you went down by the moat, weren't you scared of getting bitten by the Dragator's sharp teeth or burned by his fiery breath? Brill asked. I think I was concentrating so hard on how I could tend his leg. I forgot the danger. Segra ran her fingers through her blonde hair. Brill, we must help the king escape. In 3 weeks there'll be a full moon, and that should give us enough light. But King Taldor is too feeble to even climb out of his courtyard. That's why it's important to keep giving him more food.
Even if he gets out of prison, how will he escape from the island?
If Peachy's foreleg heals, I'll try to ride him across the moat. If he gets used to a rider, we'll be able to put the king on his back.
Are you out of your mind? That is the wildest idea you've had yet.
It's the only way. It might work. We have to try.
Brill scowled. Even if the king gets across the moat, how will he get up the other side?
I haven't worked that out yet.
Brill shook his head. There's not a chance in the world that your plan will work. Even if Peachy lets you ride him, how can you be sure he'll be there when you need him, or that he'll let the king ride him?
I know you won't believe it, but I think Peachy understands me. I'm going to tell him how important he is to my plan.
Brill shook his head. Peachy may be friendly to you because you tended his leg, but he isn't clever enough to understand his part in the king's escape. Please forget your plan and stay out of trouble.
I can't do that. There's no one else to help the king, Segra replied. Then she left. Later that night, as he crawled into bed, Brill prayed, Dear Lord, help me to be brave so I can do what you want me to do. Grandfather said you love us, but I'm so scared. I'd like to help the king escape, but I don't want to go to prison. I wish I could convince Segra to be more careful. She's brave, but she's reckless, and that could get us both fed to the Dragators. Brill finally fell asleep. He dreamed Prince Grossder was pushing him into the moat where Dragators awaited with open jaws. He woke up in a cold sweat. The next morning, Brill went through the forest to the prison. He waited until the guard passed, and then he slipped up to the wall and began poking peanuts, grapes, and pieces of cheese through to the other side. With a hammering heart, he kept watching for the guard. He heard a cracked voice say,
Thank you, Segra.
It's Brill today. I'm the boy who fell into your courtyard.
Thank you, Brill. Is Segra all right?
Oh, yes, she's taking some food to an injured Dragator.
The voice laughed, then grew solemn.
You're probably helping to feed the Dragators, too. They tell me I'm scheduled to be a Dragator meal on Empire Day.
Segra has a plan to help you escape. I'm bringing you extra food so you'll be strong enough to climb out of your courtyard.
You must tell Segra not to risk her life for me. I've lived a fine life. I don't mind going to meet my maker.
I'll tell Segra.
Someday, Exitorn will again have a ruler who cares about the people. I hope it will be my son, but no one even knows if he is alive. He left long ago to live among the people, so he would understand their problems when he became king.
It sounds as if he'd be a great king.
Brill pushed in the last of the food.
I'd better go now. I'll see you later.
Brill breathed a sigh of relief as he reached the safety of the woods.
For the next 2 weeks, Brill continued to give food to the king. He didn't eat all of his own meals, but saved the small things, bits of chocolate, raisins, cherries, almonds, cashews, and sunflower seeds. He found that thin carrots, cherry tomatoes, and pea pods from the palace garden would fit in the small hole in the wall. In the meantime, Segra reported that she had tied her rope to a sturdy tree, and she was able to climb up and down the cliff to the narrow beach. Peachy's foreleg had healed enough so that he could swim again. He met her eagerly each morning to see what she brought him from the garden. As Segra met Brill one morning in the forest, she exclaimed, Brill, you're not going to believe this, but I told Peachy about the king needing to ride on his back. It looked as if he understood me. When I asked him if I could ride, he slipped into the water and waited for me to get on. Then he swam across to the other side and back.
You actually rode him?
Yes, and apart from getting my feet and legs all wet, it worked out fine.
But what if another Dragator decides to eat one of your legs? Don't you see the danger you're in?
Other Dragators were swimming nearby. They didn't bother me.
Dragators eat people. It's not safe to be riding in that moat, even if Peachy is friendly.
But as usual, Segra didn't pay any attention to Brill.
The night of the full moon comes in 6 days.
I'll have to borrow another rope from the groundkeeper's shed.
What for?
I'm going to throw it around the tree on the other side of the moat, so the king will have something to climb up.
It won't be easy to throw a rope around a tree at the top of the bank.
I know, but I have to do it.
There are so many things that can go wrong, muttered Brill.
But there's a chance that everything will go right. I have to take that chance. You'll help me, won't you, Brill?
I suppose I'll have to. You can't do it alone. But Brill's stomach tightened in a painful knot.
End of chapter 6.